Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Nitty Grit. My name is John Steinreich. I am here to start off the show. Our hostess, the founder of the show, will be with me shortly, but we are back on the Nitty Grit and very happy to have you guys joining us for another episode in our Music Chronicles series. So, we have been talking for a while now about our music experience, which is something that we really, really love. It's been our passion for many years, and I personally am the namesake of an entertainment company called JDS Entertainment LLC, which we began informally maybe 20 some odd years ago, and then formally about 14 years ago, where it became a full-fledged business. And JDS Entertainment does live entertainment, makes magic for people at their events. We do weddings, parties, corporate events, things like that. We do really fun party music, and we are really out to serve. And music really is our passion. It's the vehicle where we get to interact with people, serve people, help people, really make their events great. And so we're here on the Nitty Grit to talk again about the Music Chronicles. This is our second episode. And for everybody out there, if you can hear me well, please put it in the chat. I can hear you. If there's any sound issues or anything, please let us know in the chat so that I can make any adjustments on it. We've talked for a few weeks as in a retrospective manner about one of our music icons, Tina Turner, and part of our repertoire. Actually, the beginnings of the repertoire of our music business was a group that we call Proud Mary, which is a Tina Turner tribute show, and that was the first group that we brought into existence as entertainers, and we've moved on into other elements of corporate entertainment, wedding entertainment, doing live theater, musical theater, things like that. So that's what JDS Entertainment has done, and we're happy to bring it here to the Nitty Grit. And so like I said, we started off our music series by talking about Tina Turner and her impact on music and on us. And then we started a new series called Music Chronicles, the Music Chronicles, which we did last week. And we were talking about music history and its impact on people, and how it has so much impact on society, on people's lives, and its importance. And today, this episode of the Music Chronicles, we are calling Behind the Music. Now, you may know from cable television that Behind the Music is a series on VH1 where they did little documentaries. They're usually about an hour-long documentary on the activities of what made some of our favorite artists, what went on behind the scenes, behind their records, behind their tours, how they got to where they got. And it's really a great series for people who want to know the deeper story of your favorite artists. Tina Turner, we know, has a very deep story. Her life is not just the glitz and glamour, and the hundreds of thousands of people in the crowd and so forth. She had a lot of turmoil behind the music, and it was actually the behind the music that made what was in front of the music in her performance that much better, because there was so much depth, so many things going on in her life that she could draw from as a reservoir. So behind the music is very important because it gives us insight into what an artist is thinking and doing, what they're experiencing, what actually helps generate the music. Now, in our case, we're going to be talking about behind the music in the sense of all of the things that go into making a great performance. And because music, live music in particular, is sort of a specialty, it's not the kind of thing that people generally address. It's not something that you have to fill up your tank with gas. So you're familiar with the gas station, what happens there. You have to get groceries, so you know what it's like to go to the grocery store. Everybody needs a doctor's help every so often, so you know what it's like to have to go and get medical treatment. But hiring live music or putting on a performance, that's somewhat foreign to people. And over the years, we have discovered that we have to work with people to educate them in a nice way about what goes on in terms of the scope of putting on a great performance. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. And at this time, I want to bring our hostess and our founder of the Nitty Grit, Chantel Denise, to the stage, to the studio, I should say, rather. So here we are.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, hey.
How y'all doing out there? Y'all good on this Thursday evening? Thank you for holding it down.
Well, you're welcome.
Thank you for holding it down.
So can I share with the audience my new favorite thing?
What's your new favorite thing?
Okay, my new favorite thing is my Father's Day gift here. Can you see the Elvis cup? Can you see with the guitar handle, the Elvis cup, and then it's got Elvis on this side. So this is very meaningful for me.
That's one of his favorite. That's one of his favorite.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Mine's is Tina, but Elvis is yours.
Yes, yes, indeed. Well, I'm glad we're here. I think this is a really useful topic for us to discuss.
I do too.
Because, and I was just telling everyone that what goes on behind the music, there's a substantial amount to it.
Yeah, it is.
And people are not accustomed really to hiring live entertainment on a regular basis. It's sort of a specialty. And so they're sort of flying blind when they start contacting talent agents or band leaders and things like that. And there's things that would really help, for people who want to hire live entertainment to be knowledgeable of in advance. And then I think that this is a great topic for us to discuss tonight.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree. I was thinking I think one of the things for you and I don't know if you've already hit this, but we did not really start out. We thought we knew how to do business. We thought we knew how to do business, but we didn't really start out with we tried to set up the group as best as possible.
Yeah.
We really had to learn the business aspect of it through the mistakes.
That is correct. There was a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. And so we just wanted to just hop on tonight because some of you who actually go to watch artists, you actually support artists, you love concerts, you love theater, you love all of that stuff. And we just wanted to kind of go over, there's a behind the music with all that stuff. And it definitely is not like by the time you get it, when you go to a concert, it's already, there's so many layers and levels that it's been through, from, rehearsals to picking out who's going to be on the show, to hiring, to auditioning. I mean, there's just a lot of different elements. And we just wanted to walk through our elements because some of you who are watching are our friends. And then some of you who are artists and musicians that maybe want to level up how you do business, how you do your show. And so we want to talk about some things that we learned over the way.
Yes. So I want to share something kind of funny.
Go ahead.
Before we start. Now, and I saw there's a scene in a movie called Black Knight. You remember that? It was Martin Lawrence. I'm pretty sure.
Black Knight?
Yeah, I think it was called Black Knight. But Martin Lawrence, so he ends, it's a silly movie, it's a comedy, but he ends up going time traveling back to the Middle Ages, right? Like King Arthur, England, that kind of stuff. So he goes,
I don't think I saw that one.
I mean, it's very goofy. So and of course Martin Lawrence. But there's a scene in this movie where he I forget how he goes about, but basically he starts to do a performance of a Sly and the Family Stone song, right? And it's sort of just magically happens, and all these, you see all these trumpeters in this Arthurian court in the old Middle Ages kind of thing, and everybody all of a sudden is just instantaneously jamming to this song, right?
Okay.
And that scene, it's just so funny because I think that's sort of emblematic of the way people perceive musicians. Like, you can just whip it together. Like
that's a great point.
Like Martin Lawrence is like, hey, here's the song. 1, 2, 3, 4, go. Right.
Yeah.
And I've had experiences, not quite that, outrageous, but where clients have said, oh, you could do this, you can play the Argentine tango. I'm like, I've never tried
the Argentine tango.
Exactly. It's like, well, sure. If I really, I guess if I really knuckle down and do a lot of prep work, I'm going to spend as much time on that one song as I am for the rest of the event. but because I think people see movies, right? And they just see things whipping together, like Martin Lawrence pulling together a bunch of medieval, trumpet players, and all of a sudden they're playing funk. It doesn't quite work that way.
It doesn't.
It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
So, that's a perfectly good example that you're talking about, because if you don't know, if you're just if you naturally just enjoy music and you just want to see an artist perform, you go with just the innocence of enjoying it, right?
Right.
But as musicians, we all know, musicians and singers and actors and performers in general, we all know that it's so much. There's that extra. And here's the thing, some artists do the extra and some don't. And it shows up in the performance. Absolutely. So you want to let's just break it on down and get into it. So I just want to talk about, I want to ask you, because I think this is very important for people, because I hear a lot of people use these two terms, the difference between a gig and a performance. Does anybody know what that is? If you know what that is, put it in the chat. What is the difference between a gig and a performance? You want to share your thoughts, John?
Yes. I would say this, that a gig, that's like the entire event. It's a contracted event. It's something where we, it's from top to bottom. It's on a certain date. It's a certain time. It's, a certain repertoire. Whereas the performance is when you are actually, you're hitting the stage and you're serving the people, right? So that's sort of a general idea. People also use gig in a different way. They use it as very informal, like an informal idea. Like, oh, it's just a gig, meaning, oh, I'm just going to show up and wing it. That's the other way of calling the gig. And that's not a performance either. If you're just winging it, that's not really a performance. That's just like open mic night.
Yes. I thank you for that. I actually want to encourage people out there to really start looking at things a little bit different. And so my perspective, I feel like a gig is what everybody talks about. Oh, I have a gig. I have a gig Friday night. I have a gig Saturday night. Yeah. And I feel like it's become just this word, and gig is actually not as professional.
Yes.
I think. Yeah. So when I think about a gig, I think about someone playing at a bar and I'm not saying bar gigs are not professional. Let me be clear. It depends on what kind of bar gig. Yeah. It could be professional, but it's what kind and how you do it, what you do. Yeah. So, but I think that term gig is just thrown around like, oh, this is, I got a gig here, I got a gig there. And I just feel like gigs it's not, people don't take you seriously. When you say you have a gig, I remember because someone had an appointment for something, a friend of ours actually, and he had actually canceled one of his appointments because he says, oh, I got a gig. And I remember the person was livid because he canceled the appointments, because in her mindset, a gig is just a hobby. A gig is just a thing you do when you it's just an extra few dollars. It's not really your job. Right. So when I think about the gig, I think about it's just another opportunity to play. You like playing, you like singing, you go do it. There's nothing extra behind it. Versus a performance. When I think of someone goes, I have a performance, it already elevates, because performance comes in all categories. Like you have dance performance, you have theatrical performances, you have singing performances, you have musicians perform. So it's a whole nother level to me. So when someone says, oh, I have a performance, they already got my attention, because I'm like, oh, this person getting paid. This person knows what it's all about. So I actually started to shift my mindset from the gig to a performance. And so what happens for me with a performance is something I want to share with y'all, is that a performance is really about going in. It's almost like art, the art that's coming out of your body that you're actually giving as a gift to someone else. So not only do you get blessed by being able to use your talents, the actual people who are watching you get blessed because they're being entertained by your performance. They're not being entertained by your gig. Most people out in that audience is not going to refer to the show as,
point.
oh, that person, that was a great gig. They're not gonna respond like that. They're gonna respond to, wow, was an excellent performance. That's an excellent performer. Right. So that's how I look at it, y'all. I want to encourage musicians to start looking at that. You're living art for somebody. You're your hands playing that instrument, your body moving on that stage, your voice singing out to the people. You're actually an art form, a piece of art, actually expressing some kind of story you're telling, and you're giving it to someone else. And when they receive it, they're being entertained by the art that you've actually given. So you're actually performing for them. You're not gigging for them.
That's true.
So I want to make sure that I share that.
That's good. So, actually, you know what? As you were talking, it occurred to me that we don't write a gig contract. We write a performance contract.
That is true, too.
So on the professional level, it's better to describe it as a performance. Gig is sort of like musician lingo.
Yes, it's musician lingo.
It's slang among musicians. But you're right. Like if you tell just the average person, yeah, I got a gig, their mindset is going to go to something that you're going to be, you're just kind of goofing around, or, I'm going to my neighbor's house for a jam session, right? That's what people think of a gig. Whereas we musicians, we use it in a completely different way. So we have to watch the language that we use, because it is really like, if you're doing it professionally and you intend to level up, then you have to do it as a performance, not just a gig.
I like that. Yeah. I like that. That is so good. Yeah. So that's something that I've had to discover, though. It wasn't like I always thought of it like that. I was like, I would tell people, oh, I'm going to my gig. I'm going to do my gig. And I just, it took me having to educate myself about what I was actually doing, and how I wanted to present myself. So that's really key for me.
Right.
So, anywho, let's dig on in.
Here, let me ask the next question.
Go for it.
Okay. So this is a great question. This really is applicable for musicians and singers to really think about this. How do you decide on what performance to take, and do you ever say no to a performance request?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yes.
You want me to answer?
Well, you can answer, or I can. I asked it, so you could answer, and then I'll answer.
So the question was, how do you decide on what performance to take or not to take? Well, I look at it like this. It has to almost. So first of all, I love performing. I love singing. When I always will take an inquiry. Always. Sure. So I'll take an inquiry, and that's how I really determine. A lot of what I end up taking is by that inquiry, because what they want and what they're asking for, I have to know I can do it or not. Because I'm not gonna definitely take a gig that's country music when I cannot sing country music. Okay, so that's not my mic is acting up. So I'm definitely not gonna do that. But I am a true energy person. Like, I can tell people's vibes. If someone have that one conversation with them on the phone, a client, I can tell right off if this is something, if I want to spend my time doing business here. Yes. I mean, I can tell right off. So this is it's a few layers of things. That's definitely one, is just that personal first contact that I have. And then if they're able to really express to me what they really want, and I'm able to do it, I will say yes to it, because it's all about that first interaction and that inquiry. That inquiry, it means a lot. So I will definitely do it if 100% if I can. I do not take performances that I absolutely cannot do. And that's something I think musicians and singers, all of us, we don't need to go, let me put together a group because it's hot right now. Something's hot right now. Oh, I'm going to go and put this group. Even just like, I think we shared before, when I was a little bit upset about people putting together Tina Turner and never have done her music ever before. So first of all, there's a whole lot into that. And so you can't just hop on that. Right. And so stay in your lane too. Like, don't try to do everything. So I say no to things that I know that I cannot do. That's first off. Yeah. The other thing that I say no to is if I'm gonna have somebody who's since it's gonna be nasty, that's gonna be difficult and very hard to work with.
That energy.
I don't want it.
No.
We have a family type group. We all of our musicians and singers, we are family, and so I don't like drama. I don't want to be around it. So if I know that, the answer is no. So these are some of the ways I say no. I don't take what I know I cannot do, and I don't put myself in circles with negative energy.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you have those standards. I would say for me that when I started professionally, I didn't have a good boundary, and I was desperate. You know, it took me a while to get to the place where I felt confident in saying no. So at first it would be like, oh man, I just got to take whatever comes.
Yeah, right? Take everything.
And you know, it's sort of a deceptive way of thinking, because when you are a musician or an artist of any type, you know, these are kinds of things that can come and go.
Yeah.
Right. They may happen. They may not. You know, it's not like being a plumber or an electrician, right? Everybody has plumbing and electricity in their house. So they're going to need somebody from time to time to fix those things.
Yeah.
Right. Or a doctor or, you know, whatever professional, or even, you know, somebody who works in the store or whatnot. Yeah. People got to buy stuff. So they're always going to be people who, you know, work in those professions. Whereas being an artist or a musician, it's like, well, you know, that's sort of the cherry on top of the cake. And so the performances, people can be choosy. They can be choosy about what they hire at venues or for parties and things like that. They can be choosy. So I felt, you know, in the early days of performing that, like, man, I just better take whatever comes down the road, even if the money is not good, even if the venue doesn't treat me well, even if it's a long, long drive away. And so, you know, so I didn't say no. And I found that I was working very hard and not necessarily being compensated for being compensated. And it came down to the point where I started to get enough confidence after having done it for a while, say, all right, I don't need to do this. And actually, this is counterproductive, because I noticed I began to see a lot of fellow musicians out there either giving their services away for free or offering it on the real low, you know, on the low price and all this stuff. And I noticed that what that would do, it would drive down the market, right? And it would create a perception that, you know, musicians, you know, they're an afterthought, whatever. Yeah. They'll do it.
Great point.
They'll do it like for whatever. And it just really dawned on me, like, wait a minute. A lot of the events that I do are really fancy, right? They have caterers, they have wait staff, they have ushers, you know, whatever it is. They're booking a hotel conference room, and there's all these people. Now, why is it that those people have no problem commanding, you know, this is what we do. Here's what my staff costs. Here's what the room costs. And so, oh, okay. So you're willing to pay the caterer, right? You know, but the musicians, you know, we'll
give you $1.
We'll give you, yeah, exactly. Oh, you actually want food for your musicians too? Really? Anyway, and it just occurred to me, it's like, no, my service, even though it is, you know, maybe a specialty, or, you know, you could go with a less costly option like a DJ or whatever.
Yeah.
But even then, the DJ's working. Why shouldn't I be paid? Why shouldn't I say no if someone doesn't want to treat me the way that the amount of work that I'm doing actually should be compensated? And I began to say no to those types of things. And you mentioned it's important to be able to say no when you can't do something. You have to know your boundaries, your skills, your limitations, right? I mean, if I can't do it, I've had to learn how to say, you know what, I personally cannot do that performance. However, I'm resourceful enough to make a referral or find somebody else that I know in my circle who can do it.
Yeah.
And that client will be happier and they'll be able to serve you better, because it's a mindset. It's like, no, I don't need to make that dollar. If I can't serve that client well, then it would be better for them to pay, you know, a colleague of mine so that they get the good service that they deserve. Because you know, if I was buying too, I wouldn't want to somebody to treat me like, oh yeah, they'll just come in and slapdash the job for me. I want somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah. I like that. I appreciate you sharing that about the referral. That's another thing I wanted to touch on a little bit, because I think that it takes maturity to understand that it's not for you.
Yes, it does.
It really is an evaluation. I think for musicians and singers and performers, you guys, you have to really know yourself well enough to know what you can do and what you cannot do. Otherwise, you end up taking on the job and you don't really do the best at it. It's a wing. And I'm a firm believer in wing, put an X over it. Winging performances, I would say, take that out of your life. Do not wing a performance. And the reason being is, put yourself in their shoes. Would you like for your wedding or your special event to be winged? Like where somebody just shows up and just go through the motions for the event? Would you like that?
Would you like a half-cooked chicken?
Would you like a half-cooked chicken for your dinner? And that's basically, I like that too, babe. Oh, good. Because that's basically what we do when we wing it. And I would first put my hand up and turn myself in. I have winged some gigs before, and that's
me too.
When I go back and look at those tapes, I am not happy with me as an artist, because it's really all about you too. It's like and that's where the part you can take. So, okay, it's about me at this point. So it becomes about you when you want to present the best version of yourself. That's when it's about you. But when it's the performance, when it's time to give to the client, it's about the client. And we'll go through a little bit of that later. But, and what you were saying is that giving referrals out is huge. And I know that I've actually referred some people, even just late, I actually referred someone to someone, because if I cannot do it and do it my best, I want to refer somebody who might be able to do it and do their best.
Right.
And it's okay. It's not don't feel like you're ever losing something. I always feel like it's a game, because what just happened is you made that person that you referred this person to trust you. Right. They're going to come back to you because they're like, this person is trying to actually help me find someone to do my show, and because they can't do it. Right. And it builds community. It really builds community. So I'm glad you talked about the referral stuff, because that's really a good thing. And I think we all need to be doing that when we can.
Yes.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool. Let's jump into this next question.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask you, and we'll go over this. So I want to talk a little bit about the do's and the don'ts. Oh my gosh. And I think we hit a little bit on that. And so we're going to give you guys some do's and don'ts in the form of the letter P. That's what we came up with tonight. It's going to be all P's. So get your pen out and write these down if you want to know more about how to really take your musicianship and professionalism up to the next level. Right. There's going to be some do's and there's going to be some don'ts. And so I want to talk about this first one, because I think I've struggled with this one. So do you mind if I hit this first one?
Go ahead.
So the one thing, we're going to go through the don'ts first. And one of the don'ts for performances for me is don't procrastinate. Okay. Here's what I want to say about that. And because I have done that. When I say don't procrastinate, it's really about what we're talking about behind the music. Behind the music is that you have to actually focus on the client. So don't procrastinate with contacting the client, get in touch with the client, getting everything that the client needs. If the client does an inquiry, make sure you get back to them with that inquiry to 24 to 48 hours, because that shows them that you mean business about what they're doing. So the first thing you do, you got to create an inquiry. So if you don't have one, create an inquiry of what all the different things that take place in an event. Okay. The other thing is the music, like really just making sure that you're clear on what kind of music you're playing. And so that's something you should really get up front in that inquiry. So so one of the things that I do, I said, okay, what are the 3 styles of music you want to hear? Soul, R&B, rock, funk. What is it? I get the client to tell me their top 3. And I kind of work from there. And I do that pretty early on in the initial contact, because that's very important, because as we were talking about earlier, if I know that they're naming off some I can't do, like I said, if it's folk music, I can't actually put that on because I don't do folk music, right? So no procrastination in getting that stuff together. And then here's another part to that. The once you get the music together, the playlist that you got to put together from that music. And we'll talk a little bit more at a later time about how to, how we put our playlist together. But I do want to say this, that playlist, once you get it, who does it need to go to next?
The musicians.
The musicians. I have failed in this area, y'all, many, many times because I've waited to the last minute to get that to the musicians. And here's what happens when I do that. They are scrambling trying to learn it. Now, some people go, I don't want to get the music to the musicians until, I don't want to do it 30 days out because they're gigging and they're doing a lot of different things. And I used to have that mindset, y'all. I used to say that they're gigging and they're doing other stuff and they're not going to even look at it. And that happens. Some musicians are not looking at it, and that's on y'all if you get it in advance like that. But here's what it does for me. It helps me to be professional. If I can't get that to them, if I know I have it 30 days out, I need to just go ahead and put it together and send it to them. They should not be getting that material less than 3 weeks, to be honest. Sometimes 2 weeks because of the client. It's sometimes it really is the client. And in those cases, I have had the client just not work with me sometimes to get that final list of what we're doing. And then if there's a last minute performance, like, hey, if the client booked you 3 weeks out, you don't really have that much time. It's going to be 2 weeks or a week before they get that playlist. Those are circumstances for last minute booking, but it's not when that booking, if that booking was booked in January and it's coming up in July, there's no reason that band should be getting that playlist a week or two before. It should be 30 days out. Okay. And that's something I would say, do not procrastinate on. Really get those areas in order so that you can get it to the people so that they can learn the material. And if they come to the rehearsal or to the performance and do not know that material, then that's when you should be considering, like, if you want to work with them again, because you gave them enough time to learn it.
Absolutely. And don't procrastinate on getting your details about the
that's another one.
You'd be surprised, but details. And when I say details, I mean things like parking. I mean, like, where do you load your equipment in? Is there a certain elevator that you have to take? Where are the power adapters? Is there equipment on site? These kinds of things. What's the wardrobe? Is there a dress code?
It's a lot.
There's a lot of things, and that's where I procrastinate a lot. I tend, I've like, okay, hey, you know what? The band's all ready to go. Rehearsal. Oh, wait a minute. Gee, I don't know exactly where to park because I didn't ask. Even though I have it on my contract that they're going to pay for my parking, I didn't actually ask the specifics. And so, that is actually very important to have all those little details in a row. Otherwise, you start scrambling at the at the end, and that creates, I think, the next of the P's, the next don't, which is don't panic.
Don't panic. And we're talking like this is especially helpful for people who are actually the band leader. Are you actually, it's your band, you run it. Are you the booking person? These tips that we're talking about up front top here with don't procrastinate and don't panic, these are like for the people who are actually booking it, or they are running and leading the band. Okay. So what are your thoughts on don't panic?
Man, oh man. Well, panic never has helped in a single case ever. Never, not once. But I've done plenty of it. I've panicked if we're running late. I've panicked over, getting last minute details, or, somebody calls and they're stuck in traffic or any of that stuff. It doesn't help. And really, panic can be avoided by minding your P's and Q's, right? So you can eliminate a lot of stress by being prepared in advance, having your details in order, getting your playlist out, making sure that everybody that's working with you, is on the same page, so you're going to eliminate a lot of stress. But then above and beyond that, you have to know that life actually just
It
happens, right? You cannot control traffic. You cannot control, things that the weather, or stuff that just happens along the way,
Yeah.
right? Or, power outages, or there are certain things that just can't be controlled. and the best way to deal with that, instead of panicking, is to do what I would say is adapt and overcome.
Adapt and overcome. Can you explain that a little bit? Get into that and break that down.
Well, adapting and overcoming means to really be thinking on your feet. Use your head. And like, if there's circumstances or situations that, are out of your control, slow down enough to think and strategize and come up with an alternate, the best that you can possibly do, and it may not be perfect. Life just sometimes it doesn't. But what I found is, by and large, things tend to work themselves out when people are putting their heads together, thinking clearly, trying to be, accommodating as possible, and, trying to, even working with clients, helping them to have healthy expectations that, like, what, things can happen. We don't want imperfections, right?
Yeah.
We don't want that. That's not our goal. That's not what we're aiming at. We're aiming to have it as perfect as possible. But if we set our expectations healthy, say, look, if a bump in the road happens, we're going to get over it.
Yeah.
So that's really what it is. It's slowing down, thinking, keeping yourself calm inside, because the panic and the stress, it's gonna set the vibe of the night off.
Changes the flow.
Yeah, it'll mess up everybody else. The rest of the people you're working with might be okay, they're rolling with it. But if you're all in a bad headspace and panicking, especially if you're a band leader, you're gonna tank the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that this works though if you're any type of leader. To be honest, I think that we're talking about music tonight, but I think if you really think about what we're talking about, like, don't procrastinate and don't panic. These are like life type of things that happen. So I think these are little nuggets that you can kind of like apply in any situation, y'all. So if whether you're a musician, or whether you're not a musician, or whether you're just going about at work or something, any situation in your life that you need to take care of business, don't procrastinate. Any area in your life where that you don't need to be, we don't need to stress, period. But know that you don't have to panic, because there's always other options. What do you do? Actually, I want to ask you, like, what do you do when you feel the stress or the panic?
Wow. Well, I haven't been an expert in decompressing, but I try to breathe a little bit more, slow down, maybe step away for a moment, ask for help, those kinds of things.
Ask for help. That's a good one, y'all. I mean, that works. Like, I think, for you and I, as we do business together, I think that's something that has really benefited us when there is help asked for, instead of us just assuming that we need each other in the situation. And so John, actually, he goes on most of my performances with me, unless he has another one, and he literally helps me. Like, he's doing my sound, or he's like driving the car and driving me to the gig. There's a lot of stuff that you actually help me. I don't go on yours as much, but even with yours, you had guys that would help you do stuff, and it blessed you. And so help is very key.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I want to talk about the next component. We talked about do not procrastinate, do not panic, but do not be proud. And this is something I want to say in any situation where whether you're a leader in music, or whether you're a leader in life, maybe you're the head person at your job or whatsoever. And I'm going to try to stay mostly to music though, but you can apply these tips for life for any area. Don't be proud. One of the things that I've learned, I've actually worked with a few musicians that they really have made it about themselves. They show up, you can tell they show up to the gig late. When I'm talking about late, it's already started. the gig is already started. I've had a few situations like
Yeah.
that. I've actually been late before. Not when it started, but I've been late before, when that call time, so you get there, because we usually ask our people to get there a little bit early so that they can get into the space.
Right.
Getting there early is about getting into the space so that you can learn the space, right?
Right.
It's not just showing up and hopping on stage. I mean, anybody who keeps doing that, you're making it more challenging for yourself as well as the people you work with. Nobody wants to work like that. The energy and the vibe is already off. So do not be proud. It is not about you. It is about the client. So that's a key thing. When you're doing a performance, you have to think about, I got paid, number one, because most of you, I hope you're getting paid. I don't think any of you want to be out there just performing for free. I mean, we used to do that back in the day. That's a whole nother show. But you're the people are paying you, and whatever the amount is, whether it's a big amount or a small amount, you said yes to it. So if you said yes to the pay, you got to do the performance. It is not about you. Don't be proud. Drop your ego, because nobody wants to be around it. And we know that you're an excellent musician or singer. We know that you are. But honey, brother, sister, if you come in there with all your glory, as if you're the only one that has some glory in there, I would just encourage you to go back and start over, because it is not helping you, and it's not helping the team that you're on, because the client is the one that gets the performance for you. What needs to happen is you need to be focusing on how you're going to give to those people who came to see you. And what a blessing it is for someone to pay to see us, right? It's a blessing to be able to be invited to somebody's wedding, somebody's corporate event, somebody's family reunion. What a blessing. And I can't stress this enough. We as musicians, we need to start looking at things a little bit differently than how we can play a great solo for an hour or how we can sing so well, and it needs to be all about my voice and me and how I look on stage. That all of that is ego. I'm so glad that we don't really have anybody in our team that's like that. I mean, we've had a few people that had that thought that they were, a little bit better than everybody else, but we learn, and so we don't work with those people. And so it's very important to not be proud. It's come in on like community. It's about the community that you're building. It's not about how great you are. We know that you're great, but you don't have to prove it to anyone. People see it. So that's what I have to say about that.
Have fun.
Have fun.
Have fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's about having fun. Really, I don't know about you, but I'm sure you've had this experience where you set up and you're ready to perform, and the equipment just doesn't sound right, or the sound guy really, maybe he's changed the mix from when the sound check happened.
Yes. And my gosh.
You got to go and do a whole set of music or whatever, maybe even a whole night of music, and it just is suboptimal. And you're on stage and you're looking out and you see people having a good time. So maybe the main mix is all great, but on the stage you're like, I have one particular memory of an event that I did, like the whole night. I'm like, this just sounds awful. I can't hear anything. I'm just like mimicking on the keyboard. But that they were so happy they invited us back the next year. And I I know I could have belly ached and tripped out and all that stuff, but you know what? It isn't about me.
It wouldn't have served you.
It wouldn't have served. Would I like it to sound better so I could enjoy the experience for myself and really know that I'm actually playing the right notes? Yeah, but but beyond that, I'm like, the people out there were dancing. They're having a good time. They said thank you. Okay. Move on. Next.
Move on. I want to say something on that though too, because if it doesn't sound right, you're welcome to actually adjust it. You can adjust it. You can say, you know what, y'all, we're gonna fix this. I mean, you could make it a part of your stick. It's not like it has to be blatantly obvious to everybody, but you do something to create a space where you can actually fix it. You know what I'm saying? So but I think that how you just adjusted and kept adapt and adjusted.
Adapt and overcome.
Oh, and overcome. You just did that, and like you said, you got blessed again
Yeah.
because they brought you back.
They brought
They
us back.
brought you back.
Mhm.
So yes, I see. So I'm gonna hit some of these comments here. It says,
Check 'em out.
I'm not a musician, but I love this conversation. Yes, yes, yes. Ask for help. If you said yes, then honor your agreement.
That is
Is right. Absolutely right. People need to honor
Absolutely.
their agreement. We're gonna keep it moving with these tips. So we talked about the don'ts.
Mhm.
I want to go over and talk about the do's.
Yes.
You want to hit that first one?
The first do is planning.
Planning.
Very, very important. Planning is sort of the overall concept. Like, again, it's not like a scene in a Martin Lawrence movie which just appears out of nowhere. You actually have to get all of the specifics.
Yeah, you mentioned that a little bit about the details.
You got to get the details. And I would caution anybody, both clients and performers, to say don't do anything without a contract. And I've had clients who've been good-hearted, and they're really excited and they're ready to send deposits and all this stuff. I'm like, you know what? It wouldn't be right for me to actually receive a deposit until I've given you a contract, because I want you to know, I want you to feel confident that you understand what I'm going to be doing for you. I think that's only fair.
Now, I want to interject there. I'm going to be the switch it up a little bit. Why wouldn't you just take, they have the old system, your word.
Yeah, the handshake.
The handshake. Yeah. Your word is the honor and the agreement. Why wouldn't you do that? Like, what's wrong with that?
Well, I don't know if there's anything necessarily wrong. I think it's more incomplete. Let's say
incomplete.
Let's say I have something like that I own that I want to sell.
Yeah.
And somebody says, you know what, I'll buy that from you for X amount of dollars. We handshake on it. They get the money. I hand the thing over. Done. Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is a different kind of animal. This is like, okay, it requires a lot of questions. Where is the event? When is the event? What time does it start? How many performers do I need to bring? Where do I have people park? Is there like a noise restriction on this? Remember when we early on in our starting, we had this lovely, beautiful party in a very fancy house. All of a sudden, nobody had asked a question like, are the neighbors gonna like call the cops at a certain hour?
Then we got shut down.
Yeah, because of the noise restriction in the neighborhood. Nobody had asked. So this beautiful, great thing, like, well, I can't do any more performing now at the police department here. But it's those kind of things that have to really be in a contract, not necessarily the police department, but the times and so forth. And then, people want, and they deserve to get a good product. When they're paying their money, they deserve to get a good product. So you as the provider need to be able to stipulate, like, okay, well, what am I going to deliver for you? Now, in our case, we are dealing with what I would call human capital. We're not dealing with widgets or products. They're human beings. People can get sick. People can have travel arrangements. When you work with professionals like we do, they can be in high demand. So you have to be prepared to let the client know, hey, look, I have my team, but there are occasions when some of my teammates, I have to substitute them out for somebody else. Yeah. I think it's only fair to let people know in writing in advance of an event to say, look, I'm going to try, my goal is to give you, what's here on maybe the particular photo that you saw, but know that, I may have to use a comparable substitute. I'll give you somebody just as good. But that's only fair for people to know. Yeah. So those are some reasons why not to do a handshake deal.
Good one. I like it. I liked it. Let's talk about the do's. And I kind of mentioned this earlier. I want to talk about the do of practice. Okay, practice. So there's this thing I've heard a lot of people talk about this. I even had a girl, she tell me, oh, my musicians, they don't want to rehearse. So I want to talk to the musicians right now and singers and anybody who don't want to rehearse. It goes back to what I was saying earlier, the don'ts about not being proud. When you don't rehearse, you make it about you. You don't make it about the team. So here's the thing. There's two different ways you can look at musicianship and community and relationships for artists. So there is what I call the hired hand, and then there's the person that's a part of the team. So the hired hand person just comes in. They're not really caring about the rest of anybody else. They just come in and get their pay and work for that money. And then there is the team player who actually is they are about winning. And we'll talk a little bit more about team playing on another episode, but they are there about, it's a win-win for everybody. That's the team player person. Yeah. It's a win. It's a win for the client. It's a win for them. It's a win for the bass player that's next to them. If they're a guitar player, it's a win for the keyboard players, a win for the singer. Team players, it's a win for everybody. And here's how it works. The win for everybody, they usually get called back. They're usually the people that the team player people are the ones that get called back. They get called back by the artist, and they also get called back by the client, right? There's been times clients have specifically wanted a certain person on their show from the last year. They're like, they remember that bass player, like they want that person back, right? So that happens a lot. But the hired hand is just the hired hand. There's no heart involved. It's just all about the money. It's all about just stepping in and showing up, doing the gig. They don't really care about the rehearsal. Let me tell you about the rehearsal. The practice is the body of the work that comes together in togetherness. Okay. So if you're not a part of that, you're not a part of the togetherness. You're a hired hand. And if that's how you want to live your life, fine. If it's blessed you that way and you're fine, go ahead and do that. That's fine. I guarantee a lot of hired hands are lonely people, because nobody wants to really work with a hired hand unless they are a hired hand themselves. You know what I'm saying? So I just think there's an energy and there's a rhythm of working together as people. And I think that we as musicians, when it comes to offering our services and being the best version of ourselves, we want to shift our mindset from being hired hands to being team players, because that's really what it's all about. And not everybody is a hired hand, but there are quite a bit of people that are. And so I'm speaking to you, if you are, like, maybe you should consider reshifting your mindset about what you do. You'll probably get blessed more, have more opportunities, and do greater things. You know, do greater things. So practice is very important. And it's not, when we were talking about earlier about getting that playlist needs to be given to you so that you can actually do your own practice. So I want to make clear that practice happens behind the scenes on your own. And then when you come together, you're actually bringing the whole, it's almost like a puzzle, right? So you have a piece of the puzzle when you get that playlist at home. So you start using that piece, but you don't get those other pieces to that puzzle until you get in that practice rehearsal room with the rest of the musicians. That's when the picture comes together and you can actually see what the puzzle looks like. So that's my thoughts on that. I think it's very important. I hear a lot of people that just do not want to rehearse. Some people are very busy and it's hard. And a lot of people like to read by charts, and I get it. It makes sense. But when it comes to that, that's your standard. And you're not willing to be a part of the team. I wouldn't work with you. And you may not want to work with me, but it's fine. It's fine. But I think, we really, as a community, we would get more done if we had team player mindsets.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, hours upon hours and multiple rehearsals.
No, it doesn't.
It's really about doing your homework personally, and then coming in at least once before an event and just making sure you're gelling with the other people. That's really what it is. You want to be fresh. And it just made me think of like professional athletes. They go to spring training or training camp. You've been playing the sport your whole life, but you still go to training camp.
Yes, you do.
To get ready for the season.
Exactly. Because they're getting their bodies ready for what's ahead, what's to come.
And they have to gel with their teammates. Right?
Gelling with the teammates.
Connect. You can't just show up, on the ball field and expect that you're, just going to be totally in sync with the other guys on the team. Automatically, it takes time.
Yeah, it really takes time.
Yeah, a little practice goes a long way to make that connection. And music is so much about the heart that it does help really to vibe with people, work out the kinks before an event, and then you show up and you really are able to enjoy it even more.
Yeah, it keeps you from winging.
Yes, it keeps you from
It
winging.
keeps you from winging.
Yes, you're accountable to other people.
You're accountable to other people. So know your songs. Know your songs and practice on
Yep.
your own. Know your songs. And when you come to that rehearsal, it's not about learning the song. It's about doing it together. Because
Right.
remember, we're making a puzzle.
Yep.
There's a picture to the puzzle. All right. So you want to hit that last one?
All right. The last one is prayer. And you're actually better at this than I. But it really does, and I've seen professionals, at all levels, when they show the behind the scenes, a lot of times you'll see groups getting together and praying at rehearsals or performances and whatnot. And again, that's another element of really relinquishing your pride and understanding that the gift of music that you have comes from a higher source, right? It's a blessing that you've been given the talent, and you're praying to really make sure that you're connected with the people that you're working with and that you're serving, that you're not up there for your own personal glory, but that you're giving out glory to the people who are listening.
I like that. Yeah, I love prayer. And sometimes when I've forgotten, when I'm rushing and busy and forgotten to do it, like, Lamar, one of the singers in my group, he'll be like, sis, we didn't pray. And so like, even because that's our rhythm.
Yeah.
So he knows that's the rhythm that we typically do. So he and I, sometimes if we don't get to do it with all the band, we'll just do it together right there and just pray over the performance. So that's what we do. That's a practice that we do. Not everybody does this, but it's a practice that actually sets the tone for my performances, because that's part of my my life, my rhythm. And so if I'm not carrying part of my life and my rhythm to my performance, I mean, why would I leave that out and not do it? I do it at home. So it really just solidifies what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, keeps my head space right. I'm remembering, like, it's about, no matter what goes down tonight, just be the best Chantel you can be, and give your all. Give yourself to these people, because they came, they pay for it. They pay for you to entertain them. So that's one of our tools, is prayer. And I think that's it. Y'all, I want to just go back to recap. We talked about, for those of you who just hopped on, we talked about the do's and the don'ts and behind the music, because we're talking about what happens behind the music. Is not about the performance that you just see when you go to the show or you go to the concert or the theater. There's a lot of stuff that takes place behind the scenes, and musicians and singers, all of you who perform out there, that there's a lot that goes on. Many of you are doing a lot of extra work behind the scenes, and I applaud those of you who are actually doing that. But again, those do's and don'ts. The first don't was, we talked about, don't procrastinate. What's the second one?
Don't panic.
Don't panic. Don't be proud. And then we talked about the do's. Plan. Practice on your own, and then come together, and then prayer. Get you some prayer in there, because it will set a tone that will make your night amazing. So that's it, y'all. Thank you, Johnny D.
Thank you.
And we'll be back for another episode. And this is going to be a different next week, but we thank y'all for being on. Thank you guys for your comments. Somebody's talking about discipline here. Great information. I thank you for being on. We really appreciate y'all for just taking the time on this Thursday night. But as always, y'all know what to do. What should they do, John?
Make it
a great day, because you can. Thank y'all. We appreciate y'all. Have a great night, and we will see y'all next time. Bye.